Hello and welcome to Joy-Con Cast Episode 6. I'm your host, Nicholas, and this week, Nintendo and the future of the Nintendo Switch. We're going to be talking a lot about what the future holds in terms of cloud gaming, Nintendo Switch, third-party support, as well as cloud streaming services, how those can affect Switch, and so much more. But either way, welcome to this week's episode. To kick things off, we're going to kind of start off with the Nindies Direct that was held. And I don't necessarily care too much for indie games. I will be honest. A lot of them are hit or miss, and most of them fall in that miss line. There are a handful that I end up looking into, and then from that, there are very few that I check out and play. But still, I think that the Nindies presentations are very important. And this week, they are pretty much the staple of this week's topic. But before we go into everything that I mentioned about cloud streaming, third-party stuff, all that, we are going to go ahead and briefly talk about the Nindies Direct. So Nintendo held a Nindies presentation, a Nindies Showcase on March 20th, and it was about 30 minutes long, and packed to the brim with indie titles, and we'll get into what a couple of them were. But first thing, I just kind of want to say that every time a Nindies gets announced, there are a lot of people who are quick to dismiss it. They're quick to, put off to the side and not give it much attention. And while, yeah, I don't necessarily care for a ton of indies, I will say as of late, I know there was another one not that long ago, but I know the one that they just had a while ago as well as this one. There is a lot of interesting stuff, and there are some really cool concepts here in games that without Nintendo giving these games a platform, we would never really get to see. And I know Xbox has kind of been giving indie games more attention as well, and I hope to see the same thing from PlayStation in the future. Right now, Nintendo is kind of the only one out of the big three to really give these games a spotlight and a place to shine. And while, yeah, some of them, like I said, are hit or miss, there's a lot of interesting concepts here that you don't get from big third-party games, that you don't get from big AAA backers or big publishers. So I really do appreciate Nintendo taking the time for 30 minutes to showcase a lot of these indies. It's really special. I really should have come to appreciate this because without these platforms, yeah, the Switch, obviously I wanted to have more of that AAA third-party support, but a lot of indie games shine on Switch because it's such a fun platform to play on, and I think giving these developers even more of a even more room to showcase what they create is phenomenal, and it's really, really amazing to see. But let's actually take a deep dive into the latest Nindies Showcase. And I'm not going to sit here and go through every single game. There's only I think 2 games that we're actually going to talk about. And mostly the reason is, like I said, not a lot of these games interest me, and there's a lot to talk about this week, and I really don't want to fill it up with just the Indies presentation. So, the Nindies Direct happened March 20th of this year. I think it was a great presentation. I think it was filled with a ton of great, interesting games. Most of them aren't anything I'm going to check out, but there are a few that we're going to talk about this week because they're kind of important. And the first one is Cuphead. So Cuphead is making its way to Nintendo Switch on April 18th. It'll be $19.99, and this is pretty big. So first of all, yes, Cuphead is it's currently a Xbox One console exclusive. It's technically currently a Xbox One console exclusive. Obviously, when this releases on Switch in April, that'll be very different. But Cuphead was developed by Studio MDHR, which is owned by Microsoft, and they're the ones that worked on Cuphead, and it's available on Xbox One and PC, and now Microsoft has asked them to bring Cuphead to Switch. And this is huge. This is actually pretty big. I've played a little bit of Cuphead on PC. It is available on Steam. I'm pretty sure it's available. I'm sure it's available through like the Microsoft Game Store as well. But I personally played a little bit of on Steam, and I have to say it's a very fun game. It takes on kind of an old school. It kind of takes on that almost like a 30s, 40s, kind of 50s. I don't know what year to be honest, but like kind of that olden film kind of look. Looks grain distorted. It's the color isn't very popping. It kind of takes on that very old school look. And it's I don't know if you would call it a platformer. It's kind of a platformer just filled with bosses pretty much. And it's a really interesting concept and very, very fun to play. I would highly recommend checking this game out. It's very, very fun. It gets difficult. A run and gun. I would say it's like a retro run and gun game. It does have some platforming as well. That's what I was thinking of. But I would definitely recommend picking this game up, whether it's on Xbox, PC, or Switch. It is a very fun game. But back to the topic. Microsoft asked Cuphead developers to bring it to Switch, and Microsoft also confirmed that it will have Xbox Live support. So I forgot when it was, but a few weeks back I did talk about how Microsoft might bring Xbox Live and maybe even Game Pass to Nintendo Switch, and here we go. Xbox Live is now kind of supported on Nintendo Switch. You can earn achievements through the game, and then I'm assuming that should sync with your Xbox, or if you bought it through the Microsoft Game Store, those achievements should sync together. And this is a big deal. Now, obviously, this is no like Halo. If Halo was coming to Switch, it would be a very different discussion. But I do think that this goes to show that, well, two things. First off, I don't think Microsoft sees Nintendo as a competitor. The Xbox One X and the Nintendo Switch are two completely different beasts. They're two completely different consoles. And while many people who buy an Xbox One X may buy a Nintendo Switch to play on the side and to play on the go and to play maybe those smaller indie games, I don't know if a lot of people who are buying a Switch are also going to buy an Xbox. And a lot of people who buy an Xbox and a Switch, they're not using them in the same way at all. The Xbox One X, especially the X model, is more focused on that 4K gaming, HDR, high resolution, high pixel count, solid frame rate, all of that stuff. And the Switch, on the other hand, is more concerned with being a hybrid console, a console you can take with you anywhere. And obviously that has to, make sacrifices are needed, and resolution isn't as good. Games don't look as great. And so they're two completely different consoles, and they're not going after the same demographic at all. While they're both gaming consoles and gaming hardware, gaming boxes, what they do and what they strive for is completely different. And I think the reason Microsoft and Nintendo have had this relationship, obviously Microsoft brought over Minecraft to the Switch, and I think they did a whole play together ad campaign about crossplay with Minecraft. I think they did one with Fortnite as well. Microsoft and Nintendo have kind of built a relationship together over the past year or so, because Microsoft doesn't view Nintendo as a competitor. More so, they view them as another platform to take advantage of. There's a huge demographic that Xbox or Microsoft is missing out on by not bringing their games to Switch. And I'll tell you this right now. I think I might have said this in the past before, but there are no games that I would ever buy an Xbox to play. And if there's ever a Microsoft developed or a Microsoft exclusive type game, I would just get it on PC. Scalebound is probably the only game that I would have bought on Xbox 4. Granted, that would probably come to PC either way. But I'd love for that to come to Switch. I know there are rumors about that. But I think Microsoft realizes that. They're missing out on a huge chunk of cash by not bringing their games to other platforms. And I don't think it's going to end with the Switch. I do think we're still going to see that Project X Cloud, very similar to what Google announced, which we will talk about at the end as well, where you can play your games on PC, on Switch, on Xbox, on a tablet, on a phone, on a TV, on a browser, on whatever. Because I think they realize that, especially when it comes to their first-party games, their exclusives don't sell their hardware, and their hardware's not selling great, so therefore their first-party titles aren't doing great, and so they need to do something different. And whereas Nintendo and PlayStation, I should say Switch and PlayStation have success and have value because of their exclusives, Xbox, on the other hand, doesn't. And I do think, there is some bias there, I think. But obviously, in the grand scheme of things, obviously it seems like Xbox, or it seems like Microsoft agrees with that logic, because they're bringing their exclusives to other platforms. They're bringing their games to other systems. And they don't have the success with their third-party game or their first-party games like the PlayStation and the Switch do, especially with the Nintendo. Obviously, Cuphead isn't. If Halo was coming to Switch, this would be a different story. But I don't think Nintendo would ever do this. I don't think we'll ever see a Zelda game on another system. I don't think we'll ever see a Mario game on another system. Mario and Zelda and Metroid and Kirby, these characters are ingrained in Nintendo's DNA, and that's one reason why Nintendo has such a firm and solid relationship with their audience. That's one reason why, even with the Wii U failing and not selling so well, their first-party games can carry them. And Nintendo, a huge part of Nintendo is their characters. It's Mario, it's Zelda games, it's all the Pokemon that exist, it's Kirby and all these characters. And Microsoft doesn't have that same relationship with their first-party games. And it's clear that they don't, because they don't mind bringing them to other platforms. They're bringing Halo to PC. That's coming out sometime soon, the Master Chief Collection. Cuphead, a big exclusive that Microsoft had, they're now putting on Switch. I think when it comes to the future, I don't think we're going to stop seeing not first-party games, maybe exclusives. I don't think we will. Maybe we'll see less and less, but I do think PlayStation and Switch succeed because of those first-party games. I look at the PlayStation, and I bought a PlayStation 4 God of War and Last of Us and the Uncharted games. I love my Switch. I love every Nintendo console. I've owned a ton of them, but I buy Nintendo consoles because of those first-party games, because I want to play Mario, Zelda, Pokemon Smash, Animal Crossing, so on and so forth. And Xbox, there's literally nothing that interests me at all, in the slightest. Maybe Sea of Thieves would be fun to play, but not enough to check it out, or buy a console for it. So I think it's crazy to say that Nintendo would ever do the same. And I'm sure I know there are a lot of people who want exclusives to die off, and they just want one platform to play everything. And I get that. But gaming, especially when you compare it to like music or movies or books, it is a very, very different media kind. It's very different, and I don't know. I don't know if not having exclusives is a good thing. I personally like exclusives. I mean, it makes gaming hardware more competitive with one another. It makes gaming streaming services, which will be the future, more competitive with one another. And it allows for companies to grow and learn and adapt and make better products. But it is interesting to see Microsoft really go forward with this notion of bring every game to every platform. Um, and I don't think it's gonna end with Cuphead. I do eventually think we will see more Microsoft titles on their way to Switch and on their way to other platforms as well. Um, because that's kind of their focus right now, is bringing their games to multiple platforms. They don't view Xbox as hardware anymore. They view it as a brand. And it makes no sense keeping everything locked to one system when they could make so much money bringing it to multiple systems. They've been doing it since they've allowed, since they've been bringing their games to PC as well. Heck, I think if you buy a game on Xbox, I'm pretty sure you get the PC copy for free. I'm pretty sure. So obviously, even since that started, Microsoft has seen value in bringing games to multiple platforms, whereas Nintendo and Sony, on the other hand, see the complete opposite. They want those first-party games. They want those exclusives. And it is a very interesting future we have on our hands. As far as Cuphead goes, I will be picking this game up. It is available for pre-purchase now, so you can actually head to the eShop. And you can head to the eShop and pick the game up. And actually, I was on the eShop. Let me open it up. I was on the eShop the other day, and it's, like I said, it's still in pre-purchase. But I think it was already in, like, the best-selling. I think Cuphead was already, like, in the best-selling section. It's currently number 4 in the best-selling for all games. And it's number 4 for all digital as well. That's crazy. And it's not even out yet. Like I said, it is $19.99. Which I believe is how much it was on other platforms as well. So I'm glad we're not seeing a price hike. $20 is very reasonable. I didn't play too much of it on PC. I think maybe I played like a couple hours of it. Enough to get a feel for the game, and enough to enjoy it, most definitely. And it's surprising because let's see. I played 10 hours of this game. Okay. I played 10 hours of this game on Steam. Yeah. I don't know how far I actually got in the game. I think it's divided up, like, it's split up on islands. Like, there's different islands that you go to. And I do remember getting pretty far. So I spent 10 hours in the game. Okay. I guess. I don't know how long the actual game is. I don't know. Maybe I did make it close to the end. Because I can't imagine it's that long of a game. I don't know. Maybe I'll go back and beat it on PC. I will definitely be picking this game up on Switch day one. For $20, that is an easy double dip. I loved Cuphead on PC. I would love to have this game on the go. And I'd love to even just be able to lay down in bed or lay on the couch and just have at it. I'm into it. I'm definitely double dipping. I would highly recommend, if you haven't played Cuphead, check it out. It's now on Switch. It's a great game. Highly recommend. But yeah, that's Microsoft's future. Is definitely focused more so on bringing their games to multiple platforms. I don't think we'll see the same from Nintendo. In fact, the next game that we're actually going to be talking about is another game that was announced during the Nintendo's during the Nindies Direct. And something that I'm very interested in. So Nintendo is lending out the Zelda IP to an indie team by the name Brace Yourself Games. This is going to be called Cadence of Hyrule, and it's a sequel to Crypt of the Necrodancer. Now, I am very, very interested in this for a handful of reasons. First off, I've never heard of Crypt of the Necrodancer, which from what I've read is kind of like a beat-based kind of game. It has to do with like sound and music and stuff like that. I've never heard of it until now. I've never heard of this team until now, but it looks like this team is getting their hands on the Zelda IP for a sequel to this game by the name of Cadence of Hyrule. This is crazy. This is this is actually very crazy. So this isn't the first time, especially with like the Switch, in the Switch era, like this isn't the first time Nintendo's lent out their property to another company. You look at Ubisoft had Mario to make the Mario and Rabbids game, but we're talking about an indie developer. This is insane. And Zelda is no like Zelda is a behemoth in the gaming industry. I mean, this is a behemoth IP, and Nintendo is just lending it out to a smaller company to work with the IP. And it is, of course, I don't know. Let me actually look into this. Before I say anything, so Crypt of the Necrodancer was released in 2015. And like I said, it's a rhythm-based, looks like it's a roguelike type game. But it was released on Switch. I'm gonna have to look into it. I'm gonna have to look into it on Switch then. It was released on Switch, PS4, iOS, PS Vita, Xbox One, PC, yada yada yada. So, I've never heard of this game, but Cadence of Hyrule, I suppose, is going to be a straight up sequel to this. However, it is of course a Switch exclusive. So this is kind of like what I was talking about earlier, where Nintendo's not going to bring their IPs to other platforms. I think even with with the Mario and Rabbids, obviously that was a Switch exclusive. This IP is a Switch, since that's Zelda IP, it's going to be a Switch exclusive. I don't think we're going to see Nintendo bring their games to any other platform anytime soon. I just don't think it's going to happen. But this is kind of odd, especially because I don't know. I'm not saying I'm the one to determine what's popular or not, but I've never even heard of the first game. So it makes it even more obscure outside of it just being an indie team. It makes it more obscure for me to hear that Nintendo's working with them. But this is odd. So let me actually kind of explain. Cadence of Hyrule: Crypt of the Necrodancer will be featuring The Legend of Zelda. I think the full title is actually Cadence of Hyrule: Crypt of the Necrodancer featuring The Legend of Zelda. That's the title. That's actually the title. But it's coming to Nintendo Switch this spring. I'm reading this from Engadget.com, by the way. It's a top-down 2D roguelike that infuses the universe of The Legend of Zelda into the rhythmic world of beloved 2015 indie title Crypt of the Necrodancer. So it'll feature characters like Link, Zelda. It kind of almost looks like obviously it's like a pixelated type game. It kind of looks like kind of something like Link to the Past, but more refined, more HD a little bit. So Cadence of Hyrule stars Link and Zelda rather than Candace, the protagonist of Crypt of the Necrodancer. The game plays just like Crypt of the Necrodancer, forcing players to keep the beat while they battle through beastly dungeons. But this time around, everything is set in Hyrule, and Link and Zelda are out for booty, shaken blood. And Gadget.com, by the way. So it looks like this is a very strong focus on the Zelda IP. And even watching it, I mean, it looks like a Zelda game. It really does. It looks like a Zelda game, but with the elements of this Crypt of the Necrodancer type thing and the mechanics of that game. So if you're into Zelda, if you're into top-down 2D Zelda games, you might be into this one, honestly. I will definitely have to look into this. I might even pick it up. I'll definitely check it out. But between this and Link's Awakening coming out at some point this year, it kind of feels like, we're getting 2 Zelda games this year. It really blew my mind when I saw this in the Nindies. When I saw it in that showcase or that direct. Zelda is such a huge IP, and for Nintendo to work out, to work with Nintendo with this IP, Man, that's just insanity. I am looking into it right now. I'm trying to find out the relationship between the studio and Nintendo. I did read that, I guess, and I this is from what I've read, that Ubisoft had control over Mario and Rabbids. I don't know if Nintendo had little say or they had no say or whatever. I'm trying to see what the case is for this as well. How close they're working with Nintendo on this, because like I said, Zelda is a huge IP. It's huge, a staple for Nintendo. Um, and I'm not sure how this whole thing even began, to be honest. Like, I'm not even sure. Like, how do you even how as an indie team do you even get your hands um on contact with the Nintendo in regards of working with their IP? Like, how does that even happen? But either way, it is very interesting. And while I don't think Nintendo's ever going to bring their IPs to other consoles in any way, shape, or form, I do think this is probably the closest that we'll get to Nintendo working with developers and experimenting with their games. Because I do think this is kind of interesting, because I don't think if Nintendo would, if Nintendo never worked with these devs and said, hey, let's mix your game and our game and let's do this, I don't think we would ever see a Zelda game in this format. And I think that's really, really cool. And I think Nintendo's really, really showing how much they appreciate these indie devs. Not only do they do the Nindies Showcase, but now they're working directly with them and lending out their powerful, giant, behemoth IPs. And I think we're going to see some really cool games. I mean, we saw the Mario game with Ubisoft. A turn-based strategy Mario game would have never happened if it wasn't for working with Ubisoft. And now we're seeing this rhythmic roguelike Zelda game we would have never seen had they not worked with Brace Yourself. So I'm down for this. I'm down for Nintendo working with not even indie devs specifically, but working with other companies to mix their games with Nintendo's own. Because we're going to see, we already saw a really, really cool Mario game. Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle was phenomenal. It was fantastic. It was a great game. I loved it. I want to play through it again. I might pick it up. I might actually open it up one night and start playing through that one again, but that's besides the point. But phenomenal game. And Cadence of Hyrule appears to be the same. It appears to be, I'm not necessarily into like rhythm games by any means. I've played my fair share and they're okay. I see the appeal, but still, I'll look into this game. I'll look into it because it sounds like it's interesting enough. Because it has Zelda, and I think this could mean big things for indie games. Because there's a lot of games out there that I probably wouldn't care for, but if Mario or Zelda or Metroid or Kirby were attached to that, my interest automatically goes up to 100. And then on the other hand, Nintendo gets a really cool game from their franchise with a concept that we probably wouldn't have seen before. So I think this is best for both Nintendo and Brace Yourself games. We're going to see a really, really cool sequel to apparently a beloved indie, but we're also going to see a Zelda game that would have never been made had Nintendo not been a little more open with allowing their property to other companies. And this is obviously isn't the first time that Nintendo's lent out Zelda to other companies to develop games for them, but to do this, with an indie game, to do this with kind of an obscure title, it is pretty big. And I think for Nintendo, this is showing good things for the future of their franchises. And I hope we continue to see this trend. I hope Nintendo lends out Star Fox to another company, and we can get maybe that cool Star Fox racing game that we heard of. Or, have another company bring back F-Zero. Lend out, I'm trying to think of titles that aren't already on Switch. I can't really think of anything off the top of my head, but Nintendo lending out their first-party games to other devs, I think, means good things. So I'm very excited for this. While I haven't played Crypto the Necrodancer, um, and I'm not really interested in these rhythm kind of games, I'm excited for it because of the history that it has now, because of the Zelda appeal that it carries. It's really, really cool. It's really, really interesting. And for Nintendo to do this, I think really goes to show how much they trust and support and value these indie devs more so than Microsoft or Sony. But that's that. Moving on real quickly, I did want to talk about Google Stadia. Google has announced their game streaming service Stadia, and I know last week we talked about PlayStation with Remote Play, and we kind of talked about Microsoft bringing a streaming service to the table and how that would affect Nintendo Switch. And I kind of wanted to reignite that flame and talk about it once more, because now we have Google's game streaming service, which is titled Google Stadia, and through the internet you can pretty much stream your library of games to your TV, Google Chrome browser, phones, tablets, so on and so forth. And there's a lot that we still don't know. There's no launch date of for this product yet. I think they said like later this year or something, and they'll give us some more info this summer. There's no pricing. They do have an official Xbox like controller or PS4 like controller. They didn't give any information on pricing for that. As far as the performance, they did say that games were capable of 4K 60 FPS, and in the future 8K and 120 FPS. They also announced like different. I'm not gonna go through this; it doesn't necessarily interest me. But they did go through different specs that it has, YouTube support that it'll have, where you can like stream directly to YouTube, as well as some of the necessary requirements for streaming. And they did say that their whole thing is that gaming or the future is not a box. Gaming, it's not a dedicated hardware, but rather it's a streaming service, streaming to whatever hardware you want. And this is interesting. I think I said this in the previous, in last week's episode as well, where I don't think streaming services are ready to take off for gaming. It's different for music. You pick one music service and they pretty much do everything, whether it be SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple Music, and downloading and streaming music. It's pretty alright. It's not that demanding of your internet. You can always download for offline play. Same thing with most streaming services like Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime. Yeah, those get a little more shady because there's exclusives that go in with those. And I think we might see the same thing with gaming services as well. But to stream a video game, especially now, video games are already so realistic. There are many games that require little to no lag. You already have to worry about input lag, and games running fine on hardware. There's still games that are released today that, whether mostly on PC, that come broken or don't run well. And now if you throw streaming into the mix, you have to worry about the lag between that. You have to worry about constantly staying connected to the internet, having your PC or phone or tablet or whatever be capable enough. There's more factors that go into streaming than just picking up a PS4, Xbox, or Switch and gaming. And I'll say this, personally for me, I would rather carry around my Switch and game on that than stream games to my phone. My Switch is much bigger. My Switch has much better controls. It has a much better interface for gaming. It's built for games. It's probably gonna get more support, and in terms of like, well, I guess depending on the service, but I mean, let's say, and I guess I'm talking about more so mobile gaming. I'll be honest, if you're, I mean, I guess if you have the internet and you have the money, I don't understand why you would opt for streaming games, period. If you're at home, you might as well just play on a dedicated hardware, on a gaming box. Whether it's a PC, PS4, Xbox, Switch, or whatever. Why even go through the hassle of less ownership, worrying about lag from the internet, needing a constant internet access? Because I'll tell you this right now, I and many others many others probably agree, you shouldn't need constant access to the internet for single player games. You just shouldn't. So that's, unless there's download play where, and then you get pricing into the mix, which I'll talk about in a minute here, my thoughts on the pricing. But if they're going to offer, if you need to stream the game and constantly be connected to the internet, I guess if you're at home, that's fine. But then again, if you're at home, why wouldn't you just get dedicated hardware for that? Games are probably going to look better. Like I said, you don't have to worry about the internet lag. You have more ownership over your games. And if you're taking your games on the go, I'm sure like Microsoft or Google will probably release some sort of controller that you slide your phone onto, and you can use that as a normal controller. But other than that, you're going to have touchscreen controls. It's going to be a control interface over the screen that's already tiny and small. I don't see this being a thing yet, and I don't know why gaming from the cloud needs to be a thing just yet. But I understand Google wanting to get their foot in now. This is something that Microsoft's doing. They're already bringing their games to other services or other platforms. They're in works of their gaming streaming platform. I definitely see them announcing something within the next year or so. But I just don't understand why you would opt for streaming. Like, I know PS Now exists. I know, is it GeForce Now as well? I know they have a service. And I'm sure that, I'm sure that this will eventually take off. I'm not denying that. Like, it does have its convenience. But for me personally, I'd rather just download the game and have the game on my system and have a dedicated box for playing my games. And it is kind of different because I don't have a dedicated platform for movies. Like, I don't have a DVD or Blu-ray player. I just download or stream all my movies. I don't have a dedicated MP3 player or iPod anymore. I just download everything to my phone. Why should gaming be any different? But it's very in its very early stages of development, I think, as far as cloud streaming goes. As far as pricing, I'm very concerned with how they're gonna handle pricing, because I think that obviously can make or break the service. There's two ways that Google can go. The first way is a very obvious, straightforward subscription service where you pay $10-15 a month or however much it is, and you get access to all the games available. And as long as you're subscribed, you can stream them. Great, dandy. A lot of services opt for the subscription route. Apple just recently announced a ton of services. Those are all monthly subscriptions. Google could very well do the same, or they could go a very interesting route and offer Google Stadia for free, much like Steam does, but host games on the platform and purchase each game individually. And I think either way they do it has to make sense. I'll tell you this right now. If they do go to opt for a free platform that you buy games individually on, kind of like Steam, I see no reason to do it. You have less ownership. You're paying the same price, and the game is only gonna look as good. I would assume it's only gonna look as good as your internet will let it. Because Nintendo, Google's, on their end, they could have the most advanced servers ready to go. But, I mean, at the end of the day, I would assume that it's still gotta go through your end, your internet. And you probably have to have a decent upload or download speed, even to just get like 720 or 1080p. And if you're gonna pay the same $60, you might as well just download the game. And all PS4 Pro games look the same, regardless of your internet, regardless of when you downloaded the game. As far as PC, I mean, there's more customization, I think, with how you want your game to look, and with how your PC's built compared to others. But and then if they go the subscription service route, I mean, that would probably be in their best effort. But how would devs get revenue from that is what I'm interested in. Because I think they announced Apple Arcade a while ago, earlier this week, I think, and I'm pretty sure they said they were paying developers based on how many people play their games or how many downloads they get. I'm interested in how Google, if they do a subscription service, how they would give revenue back to developers or publishers for hosting their games on Stadia. And it's very important now, especially, I mean, we see arguments between Spotify and Apple Music, who pays artists more. Even in relation to gaming, we heard, Epic Games obviously gives a larger portion of revenue to devs and publishers. And they're going up against Steam, who their revenue is decided based on how many downloads you get. So it's a very important discussion. And obviously, I want those who create games to get compensated for creating games. So my biggest concern is how pricing will be handled and how that money will go back to those who create the games we're playing. And I think that's something that Google really does need to figure out. I'm sure they have something figured out. This game is getting this is getting support, by the way. Doom Eternal was announced for it, which is pretty cool, actually. It's obviously coming to Switch, PS4, Xbox One. Bethesda also did announce that Wolfenstein, Youngblood, Cyberpilot, Doom Eternal, as well as at some point this year, Fallout 76 are all coming to Steam and their own the very own Bethesda launcher, the very famous. They're not coming to Epic. So Bethesda did announce that their games are coming to Steam. Looks like they're bringing some games to Google Stadia as well. And I think Bethesda, I mean, especially when you see how they support the Switch as well, I do think they see value in bringing their games to as many platforms as possible. And making Fallout 76 only available on the Bethesda launcher was kind of a very weird decision. And obviously, I think it's because the lackluster return policy, the lack of user reviews, stuff like that. But I think outside of that, Bethesda obviously sees value in bringing their games to multiple platforms, much like Microsoft with their very own exclusives and first-party content. So Stadia might have some support there. And I think even Assassin's Creed was shown off for. I did see some Assassin's Creed gameplay, but I'm pretty sure even Google has said, like, they want fighting games on here. They probably want racing games and platformers and everything on here. And obviously for a lot of those games, especially for like fighting games, like lag is very important. I honestly can't see anybody streaming a fighting game. I can't. Same thing with like most competitive shooters. Like, I just can't see. I can't see this taking off that well yet. And I'm sure that on Google's end, the servers and the technology is advanced. I mean, this is Google that we're talking about. They are a huge company, and I'm sure they do have it figured out, but there's still a lot that we don't know. There's still a lot of concerns that consumers may have, and I think it's up to Google to address those. And if they really do want streaming to be the future, they really have to convince people, because it's less ownership. It's very dependent on what your internet allows. You have to be connected to the internet to play the games, I'm assuming. And if download play is an option, why wouldn't you just download them to begin with? Maybe cost, maybe more convenience. I really don't know. And as far as how this affects Switch, I don't think it does. Switch is its own, like I said, I think Switch right now is in its own game. Like it's own ballpark, its own thing. Google Stadia is trying to get a grip on a different demographic. Xbox One X and what Microsoft are doing with their games, that's a different business decision. I don't think Switch has a lot to worry about, because at the end of the day, like, yeah, I guess Google Stadia, if you do end up subscribing to this, I'm sure you'll get access to games on your phone, so you can play them on the go, but then also come back and play them on your Chrome browser on your TV. Like, that hybrid nature is there, but I don't think it's as well thought out, or as what's the word I'm looking for? As good as Switch. I mean, when you play a game like, let's use Doom, for example, Doom Eternal, since that's confirmed for Google Stadia. When you're streaming that game, whether it's on your phone at the mall or whether it's on your Chromecast at home, like I said, it's very dependent on your internet connection. Whereas if you play Doom Eternal on Switch, no matter where you are, whether you're playing it docked, whether you're playing it in portable mode, you're going to get that same experience, and you don't have to worry about, yeah, maybe on Switch you have to worry about resolution a little bit, since Switch isn't as capable as PS4 or Xbox, but you're getting a very solid experience without the worry of an internet connection. Or I'll be honest, I don't want to play games on my phone, let alone stream games to my phone. The controls are going to be whack. The interface is going to be all awful. The screen is too small. I don't want to play games on my, like, straight to my Chrome browser. I like having a dedicated gaming platform. Games are built for that platform. They're better optimized. The controls are more suited for those games. The hardware is built for gaming. And I'm fine with that. I like having dedicated hardware. It's exciting. It's an exciting part of gaming. It's like seeing the new iPhone every year, or like seeing a new Tesla when they announce it. Like seeing, I just compared two of the most expensive products, and but you know what I mean. Like seeing a new Nintendo console, like seeing the Switch when that was unveiled. Nothing will ever replace that. That was such an exciting announcement. Seeing what the PlayStation 5 or the next Xbox are going to look like is exciting, and it's a fun part of gaming. Gaming is as much about the hardware as it is the software. And while, yeah, it's like, I definitely do think, like, the console wars can die. Like, it's not, I personally don't care what you play your games on, as long as it's the best platform for you. But having different options in terms of hardware and what they all offer, that's what makes gaming so fun. If we just jump straight into this cloud streaming service, and make it our future, every game is just, the services are all going to be the same. Having the Switch up against the PlayStation 4 up against Xbox is fun, and it's cool to see what Nintendo does differently than Sony, and what Sony does differently than Microsoft, and having different hardware is exciting. And that's what, I think that's a huge part of gaming, is seeing the next iteration of your favorite console. And I don't want that to disappear. I don't. I think that's fun. I think that's a huge part of gaming, is looking at and seeing and reading about all the next specs and the design of the next hardware you're going to play your games on. I do agree that this makes sense. I do see a future where yeah, I mean, we stream our games and it's more cloud based, most definitely. But I don't know. I do think that there's still um some merit. I don't know how I want to phrase this. There's still a need for hardware in terms of gaming, because it's what makes gaming so much fun. And I think Switch has found a very great way to bring this hybrid nature of gaming, where you can play your games on the go, but also play them at home, and mix it with hardware. And obviously, yeah, it'd be cool to bring, like, to have a game to your Chromecast, your smartphone, your TV, your laptop, your, whatever. Like, that's definitely a very convenient future, but I don't think it's ready to take off quite yet. And I do think we're going to see another iteration of hardware from Sony and Microsoft. I mean, consoles have been selling very, very well. I think there's still a demand for them. I think there's still a demand for hardware. And I'm excited to see where this goes, no doubt. I'm excited to see what Sony and Microsoft have to say and what they do. Because obviously they're working on something. I think right now Nintendo is just focused on the Switch as a piece of hardware. It's a very, very interesting future, especially when you compare it to the Switch, because like when the Switch was announced in 2016, there was really nothing else that could do what Switch was doing. And even now, there still really isn't anything as convenient and fluid as docking your Switch, picking it up and carrying it with you, bringing it back home, docking it again. Like, that's a very fluid experience, and I don't think anything will come close to beating that for a while, especially when even streaming services. I think there's a lot of cons. I think there's a lot of drawbacks, but that's that. It's very interesting, and I don't know. I just thought I'd mention it. With that said, I real quickly just wanted to mention this. Super Mario Party for Switch has its first update, 1.0.1, and there's no new characters, there's no new board, there's no new content, but it does fix ranking data with the online Mariothon. So, if you were worried about that, there you go. I just wanted to bring it up because it's Mario Party. It's a beloved franchise, and it's very odd that this game has lacked the free updates like games like Mario Tennis, Splatoon 2, and even ARMS have received. And it's kind of disappointing because it's, like I said, it's Mario Party. It's a beloved game, and it launched with a very with lacking content. There's not a lot of boards to choose from. I've played this game a few times with some family. I personally like it. I think it's fun, but I've never played through more than one board at a time. But I do wish there's some more variety to the game, and I feel like adding in more boards with a free update would make sense. I mean, you look at other games like Mario Tennis got a free character every month. Splatoon 2 got a ton of free updates, a ton of free content, as well as even a paid DLC pack for it. And even ARMS, back when like that was a thing, that received some new characters here and there. There were online events for that. It is kind of surprising that Mario Party hasn't received that much attention, especially for being such a prominent Nintendo game. It's kind of odd. It's kind of disappointing almost. But nonetheless, I think it's still a very fun party game. And if I have family over or I'm at someone's house, it's a very fun game to just open up. And the controls are pretty straightforward. It's pretty fun. And I think it was maybe Christmas. I was actually playing Mario Party with my cousin. And I just popped open the kickstand. I did have my dock with me. I just had the Switch. But I just opened up the kickstand, set the Switch on the floor, handed a Joy-Con to my cousin, and had one to myself. And we actually played a great deal of the game that way, just laying on the floor, looking at the Switch screen. It was kind of fun. It was actually kind of cool. And that's the kind of experience that Stadia won't recreate, and other hybrid consoles that may try to come for the Switch can't recreate. That's why was it the Huawei phone? I think Huawei announced a phone and they compared it to Switch. You don't have those experiences on those other systems or services. You won't have games like Mario Party that you can slide off a Joy-Con, hand to somebody. After a minute of explaining the controls, get into the game. Switch is keen in that regard, and I think that's what's so important for Switch for me personally and a lot of other people, is the experience is so solid, and it's very hard to come at Switch when it has those kind of experiences. Being able to just kick the Switch up on the kickstand, set it down, and before you know it, you're playing Mario Party, you're playing Smash, you're playing whatever. Those are solid experiences and something that can't be beat, in my opinion. But either way, I think that's all that I have for this week. Thank you all so much for listening. Of course, if you enjoyed the show and you want to support us on Patreon, you can find a link in the description down below. If you want to stay up to date with the show, you can follow the show on Twitter. Link, of course, is in the description down below as well. And I also want to note that due to upload restrictions, this show is no longer uploaded over on SoundCloud. If you have the base tier of SoundCloud, you can only upload like 3 hours of content, period. And with each show running about an hour long, after 3 weeks, that got filled up. So unfortunately, the show will no longer be available on SoundCloud, as deleting episodes you just upload the next week kind of goes against the idea of having a catalog of episodes and having the show available at any time on SoundCloud. So as of right now, the focus is on YouTube. So if you enjoy, don't forget to like and share with a friend, as that would be greatly appreciated. As always, thank you so much for listening, and I'll catch you in the next one.